Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. So, today we will be discussing these two articles. Both are from the Hindu, and the first article is titled as Lessons from Vietnam and Bangladesh. So, basically, this talks about the growth in the terms of trade and economy that both Vietnam and Bangladesh have been successful in achieving, and what can be the potential lessons that India can learn from their model of trade. And secondly, we have the cost of clearing the air. As we know that this is the prime season for stubble burning, and that is why the air pollution, specifically if we talk about in Delhi, has increased manyfold. And in this situation, what is the actual cost that we will have to bear to clear the air pollution, and what are the steps that we actually need to take in this regard? And then we have the news and flash column, wherein we'll be discussing the small and crisp news points that are more important for a prelims exam. You can definitely have a look at the LawSikho course that we have for you. So as you know that we have the lot of the courses, which is the judiciary test prep course. So you can definitely prepare through this course and can also download free study material, and the link is there in the description box below. With this, let's see that what is the multiple choice question for the day. Greater Malay Connectivity Project is for connecting Maldives to India, Maldives to China, Malay to three neighboring islands, or Maldives to Sri Lanka. You can write down your answer in the comment section below. So this is the descriptive question for the day. What lessons can India learn from the Bangladesh and Vietnam economic growth story? And the answer must be written within a word limit of 250 to maximum 300 words. With this, let's start with the first article for the day, which talks about the lessons from Vietnam and Bangladesh. So, while Bangladesh has become the second largest apparel exporter, by apparel we mean clothes, textile exporter, after China, Vietnam's exports have grown by about 240% in the past 8 years. Now, very recently itself, wherein we were discussing about the trade relations and the trade pattern of India and Bangladesh, we had studied extensively that very soon Bangladesh would be able to cross or surpass the per capita income or the per capita GDP of every person or every citizen of the country as compared to an Indian citizen, or the per capita GDP or the per capita income of India. And with that, we easily understood that Bangladesh was growing extensively in its trade. So today, we do not only have a comparative study of Bangladesh and India, but also we will be talking about Vietnam, as the exports by Vietnam have also grown by 240% in just last 8 years. So this is a very huge accomplishment when it comes to trade and export. And that is why it's important for us to understand as to what steps and what trade model have these two countries followed, and what can be the good and suitable points or steps that we can also take as a country in our to flourish our trade. So here are the success stories of these two nations. So firstly, if we talk about Vietnam, so firstly, it has an open trade policy. And by open trade policy, we mean that it has free trade agreements with United States, European Union, China, Japan, South Korea, and India. And Vietnam domestic market is open to partners' products. So basically, the products that are manufactured by Vietnam are actually brought in by these all countries, like all the member nations of the European Union, US, China, Japan, South Korea, and India, without any custom duty. So due to which what happens is that ultimately the products manufactured in Vietnam, when they are sold in the markets of these countries, are very cheap, and that is why people prefer buying these products. That is how free trade agreements come very handy when it comes to flourishing your trade in the international market. And then also Vietnam domestic market is open to partners products. So just like that, Vietnam's own domestic market is also very much open, wherein its trade partners can come and can also establish their own retail shops or any kinds of retail or other kinds of trade values in the domestic market of Vietnam as well. Then less inexpensive workforce. So obviously workforce, as we know, labor is a very, very important and crucial asset when it comes to developing your trade relations or your trade capacity. So in that regard, the workforce or the labor in Vietnam is comparatively very inexpensive. That is, it is not very costly, and that is why the total cost of production of any particular goods or service is not increased very much, and thus it is very much affordable by every person. Then generous incentives to foreign firms. Now, as we know that foreign, like in India also, we focus a lot on the FDIs, that is the foreign direct investments. But very recently, the ease of doing business report, which came from the World Bank, it also highlighted that in India, still the investors who come to our country and want to invest in various kinds of business, they have a lot of problem in, like there can be several kinds of problems, like even in establishing the business, getting some kind of licenses, getting the electricity, or even in the terms of funding or protection to the small finances, and so on and so forth. But that is not really a case when it comes to Vietnam, because the country or the trade setup in Vietnam makes sure that generous and good and attractive incentives are provided to the foreign firms. And like the domestic laws are made in order to attract the investors, foreign firms can compete for local businesses as well, as in for tenders and other kinds of businesses. Even the foreign firms can file for tenders. And in 2019, it received investment exceeding $16 billion, and the exports rose to $279 billion in 2019 from just $83.5 billion in 2010. So just like in 8 to 9 years, it grew to this high extent. And then most of the exports happen in five sectors, and export to GDP ratio is 107%, which is vulnerable to the global, changes that take place in the terms of or global economic uncertainty. Now, this is one point where even Vietnam needs to work a lot. By simply export to GDP ratio, which is known as the EGR, it simply means that how much amount of your GDP is gained through the exports. As in, if, like, for example, the total GDP of a country is of rupees 100, and now we need to find out that of these rupees 100 as a total GDP, what is the share that is brought through the exports that are made by the country. And it is believed that better the nation, or in a way the stronger a nation, the lesser should be the dependency on the exports, because obviously when you're exporting something to the global market, you're very much dependent on the whims and fancies and the patterns or the trade relations that you are into, or that you are getting involved into at the global economic scenario. And if at all there is any kind of economic uncertainty at the global level, then definitely your trade or your export will be also hampered. Like a very simple example of this can be taken, like the Middle East economies, like of the Western Asia, wherein Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and various other these similar countries that are the huge producers of crude oil, but they are highly dependent on the export of these crude oils. So their trade economy and their money, in a way that they actually, or their GDP depends very much on the export and also the demand of this particular crude oil in the other parts of the world. In the times of COVID-19, as we knew that the industrial operations had been shut down, the transportation was minimal. So in such a scenario, the demand for crude oil, that is petroleum, diesel, and other byproducts of the crude oil, it actually came down to very huge levels. Now, in such a situation, obviously, when people in the outer world were not demanding a lot of crude oil and similar products, so definitely the economies of these Middle East countries were highly hampered, because now they were not able to export this thing which they had in surplus. So in a way, their economy or GDP also depends a lot on the export of the crude oil, and that is why any kind of uncertainty in the economic global share market or economic global relationships can hugely hamper the entire GDP of that particular country. And similar is the case with Vietnam, wherein the exports is only in five sectors. So there are only five, as in the exports are neither diversified, and also on the other hand, they are highly dependent for their GDP on the exports. And that is why it leaves Vietnam vulnerable to the global economic uncertainty, which thankfully is not the case with India. So here we have some statistics and data that you can relate to. So if we talk about the apparel exports, like of the textile in $1 billion, so here the blue one is India, the black is Vietnam, and the orangish red one is Bangladesh. So as we know that Bangladesh has come to be the second largest exporter of the apparels or textiles after China, and then we have Vietnam. And this is the general trend that India has been following. But in the current scenario after 2014, both Bangladesh and Vietnam have been beyond and ahead of India. So here are some different kinds of statistics. You can definitely go through them. So here, the second one, the success story is for Bangladesh. So let's understand that what are the trade policies that that are looked upon by Bangladesh. So it supported the largest firms for a quick turnover because large firms are better positioned to invest in brand building and meeting the quality and requirements of market and other market needs. So that is why they paid a lot of attention on the large manufacturers or the large firms. But at the same time, it did not leave its small firms, and it also helped them to flourish and work as active suppliers of various goods and services to the large firms and grow simultaneously. Then it diversified its export basket. So as we know that Bangladesh is one of the largest producers of exporters of the apparels or textiles, but still it is making a lot of endeavors to diversify its export basket. Now by export basket we simply mean that what all goods or services are you actually able to export in the international market. Like it can be, like if we talk about India, it can be about the agriculture products, it can be about medicines, it can be about electronics, some electronic products as well. So these are all the elements of the export basket that India has. Then duty-free exports from European Union allows duty-free exports to least developed nations. So basically, currently for the European Union nations, Bangladesh holds the status of LDC, which is the least developed country or the least developed nation, which is NDC. So due to which there is no duty or no any custom duty which is put up on the products that come from Bangladesh. So in a way, for example, if a product is if we talk about, for example, if we talk about in dollars, so a particular product coming from Bangladesh is valued at $1 per product. So this will have to face no duty or when it is exported towards the European Union, which would ultimately help not to increase this particular price, and it would be sold at $1 only. Now this will make the product more affordable to the people, more competitive in the global market, and thus the trade or the exports from any country would flourish. So that is why it enjoys the duty free exports from European Union, and due to the least developed country status. But very soon, since its GDP and per capita income is increasing very rapidly, it might not be able to avail this status for a longer period of time. But yes, currently at least it does. The United States and India are also take the products from Bangladesh on a duty-free basis, except for alcohol and tobacco. Because as we know that alcohol and tobacco are one of the most crucial goods for the government revenue, and a lot of duty is there on these two products. Then, according to the ECI, which is the Economic Complexity Index, it actually tries to find out that how diversified and complex is a country's manufacturing export basket. So, in that scenario, China is at rank 32. So, lesser the rank, the better position you are. As in, lesser the rank, the greater diversified export basket you have. So, India also stands in a good position, which is a 43. And as you can see, Vietnam stands at 79 and Bangladesh at 127. So, here is one point where India ranks fairly better than Vietnam and Bangladesh, because they export the products that we are dealing with in the export basket are very diversified. We actually export a lot and many kinds of products. So, see, the benefit of having a lot of products or a diversified export basket is that a country is not totally dependent on a particular good or any particular nations for importing goods from our country. So like for example, just like we take example of the Middle East countries again, so they are hugely dependent on the export of just their petroleum products. But if they also deal into various other kinds of things or products, maybe it can be food items, dates, or any other things, so then it would not have to depend a lot on just one single product and on the demand of that one single product. So that actually makes the GDP and the export system of that particular country more stable and even more resilient to any kind of market changes. So here are a few lessons that India can take from these countries. So India should also support large firms just like it was done in Bangladesh. Then it can change domestic laws to meet the needs of the investors, like in Taiwan, to set up sectoral industrial zones with pre-approved factory spaces, so that once if any foreign direct investment comes into India, or any manufacturing setup wants to come into India from any outside country, then it does not have to get into the tantrums of approving the land and getting permissions, licenses, etc. And then focus on organic economic growth through innovation and competitiveness. So obviously these are the things that we need to take care of. With this, let's discuss the second article for the day, which talks about the air pollution, that how big a problem is it in India, and specifically if we talk about our capital city, Delhi. So in February 2020, the finance minister announced a rupees 4,400 crore package for 2020 to 21 to tackle air pollution in 102, that is 102 most polluted or highly polluted cities of the country. So here we need to understand as to how big is this problem. So the scale of the problem is unknown, because many a times we have not even been able to understand the kind of air pollution that is happening in a lot of cities, and we do not have the prescribed equipments to actually understand the level of air pollution in particular areas. So if we talk about Delhi, in the last 2 years it has installed an extensive network of continuous ambient air quality monitor. So, and also it conducted apportionment studies, that is for stubble burning and degrees of pollution. So, apportionment studies, by that we mean that it tries to understand as to which source is a greater contributor towards the air pollution. Like, for example, it is not just the stubble burning that causes the air pollution, right? There are other scenarios, there are other reasons as well. Like we have transportation, a lot of industries are there, and then similar other activities that also contribute to the air pollution, and also of course the stubble burning. So it has tried to conduct apportionment studies wherein it tries to understand that yes, this much percentage of pollution is coming from this source, and this percentage is coming from this source, so that the allocation of funds as well as the planning can be done in a more effective manner. And then 59 out of the 122 cities had particulate matter 2.5 data available. Now, as we know that PM 2.5 or the particulate matter 2.5 is one of the most dangerous air pollutants, apart from other like methane carbon monoxide or nitrogen oxide, such products. So PM 2.5 and PM 10 also is one of the most dangerous one. So only 59 cities out of 122 had the data available regarding the PM 2.5, and only 3 states currently in India had installed monitors to actually understand the falling and rising patterns of these air pollutants. So here, this is about the 4,400 crore fund. It says that it reduce particulate matter by 20 to 30% from 2017 levels by 2024 under the NCAP, which is the National Clean Air Program. Until now, only half the money has been allotted to 15 states. So even the allocation of funds has not been done in a complete manner, and even the spending of these funds has not been done in a very effective manner till now. So Maharashtra and UP got the maximum funds, that is of rupees 400 crore, and funds do not account for trained manpower. Now, this is one thing that we need to understand, that this fund, which we think is wholesome and will actually be able to deter the entire problem of air pollution, but still we are very likely to fall short of funds, because this funds of 4,400 crore still does not account for, or still does not include the expenses that we would have to spend on the trained manpower and the other support system, and that is why we'll have to spend even more when it comes to this problem. And then in the NCT, which is the National Capital Territory region, in the last 2 years, Ministry of Agriculture has spent 600 crores rupees to provide subsidized equipments to farmers in Haryana and Punjab. But this year, we have again seen more cases of stubble burning as compared to the previous year. So there has to be, a multilateral, a multi-dimensional approach that we need to follow in here, wherein we also need to deal with the air purifying system. We also need to get to a greener economy. We also need to make the farmers understand that what are the deterrent consequences of burning the stubble. We also need to inculcate the various behavioral changes and understanding in the people as well, that we should not be causing a lot of pollution as it is really harmful for us, our health, as well as the future generations. With this, let's see what do we have for news and flash today. COVID-19 vaccine could be 90% effective, according to Pfizer. So the findings put the company on track to apply for emergency use approval from the US Food and Drug Administration. But this is only an interim analysis from an independent data monitoring board, which looks at 95 infections out of the 44,000 people in the US and 5 other countries. So even till now, we are not sure whether or not this COVID-19 vaccine, whenever we have it in hand, so how much would that vaccine be effective in curbing down this virus? And secondly, India Maldives sign 4 MOUs, that are Memorandum of Understandings, to boost ties. So the agreements include a $100 million Indian grant for an ambitious connectivity project, which is part of India's $500 million package for Greater Mali Connectivity Project. So now you know the answer. And the 2 MOUs, or the Memorandum of Understandings, were for the high impact community development projects, and one was on the cooperation in sports and youth affairs. So with this, we also understand that India, as we just discussed yesterday itself, that India has been a very helping hand for the countries like Maldives, and that is why this is one of the another examples of the very situation. So with this, we are done for the day. We hope it was a good session for you. Stay tuned with LawSikho for such more sessions to come. Thank you so much.